of owning a cafe and other heroic deeds by Beware the Tistero, Chapter 92, Old Flame. With preparations for Saturday mostly done, the week rolled on. Dabby was as good as he could be. He and Tomra had been spending a lot of time hanging out at the cafe, in their apartment upstairs and beyond. Plus, Manama Nato had settled in well. Nezu hadn't been wrong about his attitude or temperament, for when the formerly stuck-up little boy had waltzed into the cafe, he declared that the study group was beneath his notice, and that he could beat them all with their own quirks. However, after Hitoshi had rolled his eyes and told him that such things didn't matter to them, and that they all wanted to befriend him anyway, within 5 or so visits, well, the little blonde soon became less sullen, less loud, and more willing to laugh along with Mirio's jokes, spar with Eijiro, groom Hime with Ochako, and listen to Denki's spit take on My Homework Sucked. All of the tots coming together to help him decorate his dormitory at UA had only cemented a kinship he'd watched bloom and grow over the months they'd shared too. Therefore, when the little scamps approached him about care packages for the Todoroki siblings, he never surprised. Not at all, and simply helped them to compile their ideas with plenty of hugs, praise, and hair ruffles along the way. Damn, he was proud of them, of the people they were growing up to be. Not that they were the only people growing up well, because thanks to his tireless efforts, Chizome's enthusiasm, rallying from the local pros and the agency plush, a cash injection from Mirai and Toshinori's charity funds, their community was looking more amazing by the day. 3 of the abandoned buildings he often sighed at on his infrequent jaunts to the bigger supermarket had been turned into a youth center where students of all ages could go instead of being stuck at home by themselves while their parents were all at work. The center, adorably named after his cafe, the Neko Kaneko Club, featured gaming areas, career advice, tutor-based services, and access to counselors that many struggling youths simply couldn't access on their own. Not that they were stopping there, for after such good press coverage, the politicians overseeing the area were making cash injections of their own. And so, in the past 2 years, 3 parks had been built with people of the area invited to help critique the design, plant the trees and flower beds, and local pros, true to their calling, had all taken on rotas to keep tabs on the green spaces to ensure that drug dealers, gangs, and antisocial groups stayed clear. Thanks to their combined efforts, there had been no incidents. Young parents liked to stroll with their prams through the spaces. More people were taking up jogging and running, and there were even Tai Chi sessions run by volunteers in the spring, summer, and autumn free of charge. More and more heroes, too, it seemed, were beginning to see the value in supporting such areas, and Naoki, now pro-hero Kamui Woods, had set up shop with his friend's agency alongside a beautiful young woman named Takeyama Yu, or Matt Lady, which meant, of course, that they were both regulars at the Northern Echo now. He couldn't have asked for more, really. It was just such a shame that some people weren't exactly appreciative of his community's efforts. He'd had the occasional death threat here and there, and their website having been hacked, but those fools not truly realizing who they were dealing with, well, upon only mentioning the 3rd or so instance in passing once to the local pros and Toshinori when they'd been enjoying an evening, a few startling things had happened. The first is that she had very calmly asked to view the messages before a laptop removed from his sleek band sticker swathed satchel. He cracked his knuckles and told him not to worry about it as Tomra, Dabi, and Spinner were brought in around him. The second, the Jade-Eye Man and the others had gotten up after half an hour of quiet discussion and left the stray cat promising to return, which they had, not even an hour later, all smiles, a similarly grinning Naomasa in their number, and at the time, he'd not thought much of it until the following morning. The Musutafa news feeds were full of reports that a small-time gang of thugs had been discovered, their base dismantled, and all of their assets seized. They'd been charged with a number of things, and 3 men who had foolishly tried to escape were in the hospital and being treated for injuries. When he'd brought up the topic on the group chat whilst side-eyeing his teens, Tomoko had feigned ignorance, Mori had commented about the weather, Hisashi had sent a winking face, whilst Oboro pasted in a meme he didn't understand. Toshinori, however, had simply written, "Goodness, those fellows look as though they've learned quite the lesson that crime doesn't pay, haven't they? Ah, well. Oh, Shouta-kun, I was hoping to come by later for lunch. By any chance, are there any poppin' cookies left? They go so well with that delicious hot chocolate you make." Strangely, there'd been no such threat since then. Chuckling to himself at the memory, he continued to clean his mugs, keep tabs on the tats, and greeted customers whilst Tomoko oversaw the cats and Chizome waited on the people outside. Everything was going well. This was a Wednesday just like any other. He'd be going out with Toshinori this evening for another date. Ding ding! Blinking out of his thoughts, Shouta looked to the cafe's main entrance, the little carried bell merrily jangling as a brunette man and a blonde girl, roughly the same age as his oldest tats, whom he didn't recognize, walked in, their eyes wide and both clearly happier to be inside somewhere with air conditioning. "Welcome to the Noriko Cafe," he greeted with a bow. "What can I get you?" "Oh, sorry, English? Huh? Tourists? And American ones, if you pegged the accent rightly." "Yes, I speak English, and sorry, we don't have a menu in your language, but I can tell you what we have and what price everything is," he offered, the man's smile broadening, whilst the child let out a pleased gasp. The more he looked at them, the man seemed familiar. He was sure he'd seen a photograph of him somewhere, the girl too. Was he a celebrity? What would a celebrity be doing out in this neck of the woods? Most tourists rarely ventured away from the bigger cities, did they? "Oh, that's wonderful, thank you. We're here looking for an old friend of mine, and his secretary said that he often came to this cafe, and now that I'm here, I can see why." The glasses wearer chuckled. "It's a beautiful place, and... sorry, I don't mean to waste your time." He laughed, his expression sheepish. "This cake here looks delicious, though. May I please have 2 pieces and 2 glasses of cola?" "Of course, that'll be 1,000 yen, he replied with a bow. "Please feel free to sit wherever you like, and the Wi-Fi password is on the poster over there if you need to use it," he furthered with a gesture. Thank you very much, Mr. "My name is Aizawa Shouta. It's a pleasure to meet you," he replied diligently. "Aizawa!" The man blinked, his expression momentarily stricken before he nervously laughed it off. Yes, it's great to meet you as well. Come on, Melissa, let's go sit at that table, all right?" Watching the man go, his eyebrow cocking slightly, the eatery owner shrugged off the strange feeling he had and went to get their order put together, the sounds of his tots laughing and Regula's chatting mingling in with the soft jazz music piping through the sound system Hisashi had rigged up for him only a month or so after he'd opened. Stranger names had happened than a pair of tourists coming into the Noriko, after all. 20 minutes later saw the most of the lunchtime customers on their way back to work. Chizome was dutifully cleaning, some middle schoolers were in the gaming station, and 5 more people were granted entrance to the cat enclosure. The Americans, similarly, were still here. The man looked increasingly pensive, and, unless it was his imagination playing tricks on him, the foreigner kept sneaking glances at him. It was a little unnerving, and if it wasn't for Tomura and Dabi texting him something along the lines of, "What's that guy's problem?" "Shit, have you got another stalker, you crazy nuts old guy?" He'd have thought he was just being paranoid. Trying to keep himself busy, he'd accepted their united offer to man the till whilst he went into the kitchen to restock what they'd need for the salary crew when they came off shift and visited them for their meals and rest. It was probably a better idea to do it now, since he was heading out at 1900, wasn't it? "Let me know if our foreign guests need anything, okay? Unless you're happy to take care of them in English," he grinned when the teens slinked behind the service bar, Tomura diligently tying his hair into an adorable neck ponytail. "English, huh?" the decayed quirk user mused, his shoulders shrugging. "Sure, no problem," he furthered whilst he and Dabi blinked at him, those pale cheeks pinking. "What? English is the language of business. I'm just glad they're not Spanish, because I suck at that. But my Mandarin is pretty good, if you ever need something imported from overseas." He shrugged whilst Dabi balked and he allowed a shocked pleased laugh to leave him. "You're just full of surprises, aren't you?" he praised the other, blushing a little darker as he squeezed his shoulder. Do either of you want a snack while I'm in there? Thanks, but I got my snack right here. The flame quirk user snickered, his arms looping about his partner's waist from behind as he popped his chin on the other's shoulder.
Yo,
The younger man floundered.
this is unbecoming behavior in the workplace, you know.
He huffed his body, leaning into the embrace, his blush darkening further. Hey, how's your manager? I get to decide what's unbecoming, don't I? The scarred teen grinned, both of them chuckling. Wedding bells! And decided for his wallet. No one had bet against him when he'd brought it up with his friends. They were all agreed that the pair seemed to be made for each other. You two are adorable, he huffed before turning and walking towards his kitchen's door. Oh, and can you tell Chizomi it's time for his break as well? Thanks. He added over his shoulder, the pair nodding before he submerged himself within his sanctuary. Then, his hands washed, he began assembling cake ingredients, priming his mixers, warming the ovens, and preparing various tins, trays, molds, and piping bags. The miso soup pan was still simmering, the rice cookers were set, and thanks to a few stock orders arriving this morning, he had everything he needed to whip up everything on his regular menu, plus a special batch of muffins for Toshinori. He recently found out that the man greatly enjoyed toffee apples, and after a little playing around, he made a coating for the fruit that cooked well and helped the fruit to keep its integrity instead of melting and dissolving into a sticky goo. Grinning to himself, he got the first cake batters mixed up before turning to where he stocked everything he needed to make his sugar-based wares, his throat humming a tune as he worked. Getting back into his office, another morning of a delightfully quiet patrol under his belt, Toshinori walked through the office block and greeted everyone with a smile. He really felt his spirits light and heart full. For later on today, he would sit down with the teens and study group to ask them how they felt about his plan to propose to their cat dad. He'd already put feelers out through his PA about which apartments were available in the complex that overlooked the Noroneko, what kind of planning permissions he'd need for remodeling, and who the landlord was, too. He just hoped that all of this planning wouldn't be in vain,
Iyagi-sama, could you wait a minute, please, sir?
Blinking out of his thoughts, his caped form stopping, Toshinori turned to view Ichigawa-san, her smile bright as her half-heel accented feet daintily tapped her over to him from the desk she manned for his sake. Yes, he returned, his shoulders rolling a touch.
You had a surprise visitor just under half an hour ago, sir.
The red-haired woman vertibly chirped.
He said that it wasn't urgent and that he was only here for a few days, so I directed him and his daughter to the Noroneko for you.
She added, her smile fond as he raised his eyebrows. A visitor? He blinked. Who?
Why, Shion-san and his daughter Melissa-chan. She has grown up so much since I last saw her. I can hardly believe that she's 9 now. Can you?
Feeling a strange sense of foreboding march over him, Toshinori could barely hear the woman gushing over his goddaughter. The child David had been told to have for the sake of his family, the quirkless girl whom he adored even though her existence was what led him and David to part ways. The innocent kid with her father's brains and her mother's looks. His looks, blonde hair, blue eyes. A mother who'd amicably divorced the man whom he'd once broken his heart over 8 years after she'd been born. Swallowing thickly, the ringing in his ears growing loud. A quiet, distressed little voice that sounded like his quirkless boyhood self whispering that David was at the street cafe. David, whom he told all about Shouta in various emails and telephone conversations. Oh, you're dating again? That's great. I'm really happy for you. You're not on one of those god-awful apps, though, are you? What? Just the one guy. Oh, I see. David, who laughed at the age difference between them. 10 years, Toshi. I didn't beg you as a sugar daddy, you know. David, who'd wondered how serious he could be about a cook. So he's not a pro? It's incredible to think that he's created a business so young, but I don't know. I'm just really surprised that you, with who you are, would be this interested in someone so ordinary. I'm sure he's lovely, but can he keep up with you? You work really hard to build up your image, Toshinori. I'd hate to see you throw it all away, that's all. David, who'd sounded a little bitter, a little sad when he'd wished him well. Marriage! Well, don't take any cues from me in that regard. Good luck with it all. Yeah, good luck, and don't get your hopes up, alright? Fuck!
I arrived there not that long ago. Yagi-sama, are you alright?
Stiffly nodding, he regarded her carefully.
Please cancel the rest of my schedule for this afternoon, would you?
Oh, yes, of course, Yagi-sama,
she stated, her head cocking to the sky.
Have a nice reunion.
Waving Awata-san goodbye, her takeaway bag stuffed with goodies to share with Centipede before they went on patrol, Dabi stretched, checked on the kids and his mom before letting out a yawn. You want a coffee? He asked his partner, those busy quirk-gloved hands, writing up a computer program he wanted Spinner and Izashi to look over when they came by later, his crimson eyes alight as he wrote and rewrote his calculations upon his tablet, the pusheen-headed stylus bobbing and shifting around.
I love one,
he replied, his scribblings not missing a beat.
I've got some Pocky stashed under the counter, too, if you want to share them.
He continued, his grin spreading as he finally straightened out the code. You know me so well, he returned with a snicker whilst turning to the semi-ancient Italian machine that Shouta loved almost as much as them. But speaking of knowing things, any idea what Toshiji wants with us? He hasn't called a group meeting without showing in a while, excuse me, two more colas, please? Blinking, Dabi tried not to chuff. The flame quirk user grumbled a little under his breath whilst he saw Tomura nod out of the corner of his eyes. Don't they teach manners in America? He muttered whilst his partner diligently poured 2 more drinks.
They do things differently over there.
He shrugged a little, a grin pricking his lips.
You'll find some Americans even more polite than Inko-san, and others a great deal worse than any villain you'd run into around here at night.
He furthered mildly.
He only ever took me there a few times, and well, let's just say I chose to stay in my room a lot.
He juggled. Regarding him carefully, he sneaked a kiss to the other's cheek before the other man placed the glasses on a tray, rounded the service bar, took the tray, and walked over to the tourist.
Here you go, sir,
he stated in near-perfect English, the little girl smiling at him brightly, whilst the older man blinked those cobalt eyes at him.
Can I get you anything else?
Oh, no, thank you. We're waiting for an old friend, he replied, his face a little pensive.
I see,
he returned, his mouth opening to say something else when his uncle's form suddenly streaked across the windows and skidded to a stop just before Mimi-chan's flower beds, his brows rising as he watched. The blonde wasn't late for the League of Cafe conference he'd called for, and oddly he was still in his costume.
He's here!
Blinking once more, Tomura quickly moved out of the way as the child zipped out of her chair and zoomed towards the cafe's exit, her straw hat lost to their linoleum floor along the way.
You!
He breathed, the realization of who the man was dawning on him when the brunette similarly stood, many of the locals watching on bewilderedly at the commotion, with Kohaku-san quietly riding the chair the American girl had tipped over.
You're Mr. David Shield, aren't you?